Welcome to the Rant for November 9th, 2020. This is my weekly show for the Western Standard where I bitch, piss, moan, vent, get things off my chest, just go on about general stupidity and issues going on in the world. It's my therapeutic action for the week, so I lay off my poor, long-suffering wife who has to listen to me rant for the rest of those days. It's an effective vent, and hopefully my venting on your behalf will help you relax a little as well. You get angry throughout, but damn, you feel really nice and relaxed afterwards because it just builds up, and you get pent up, and it's terribly unhealthy. It's like a political constipation. So this is where it blasts forth, and the morons of the world provide me the laxative to clear this out, and they've always provided in spades. Since I'm starting actually on a fecal theme, I'm going to start with this Father of the Year. This guy was reported he has 6 children, and in honor of them, oh, they must be so proud of their dad, he has tattooed 6 turds on his leg with their name associated with each one. I'm not sure if this guy's a hero or a lunatic. I do love tasteless, sick humor, but then I do feel for these children who are now being represented by a number of turds. He's gone to great detail on this. You get closer. I mean, he's even got corn on there and little flies going around. I'm sure Bobby is going to blow that up for his Christmas cards to send for years to come. I don't know. It's a strange world. I might as well start this with a bit of a laugh. Again, dark humor, I guess, considering he probably has traumatized his 6 kids through this. But, well, they'll toughen up a little, I hope. Now we'll get on to more annoying stupidity, and there's lots of it. So, this here we've got from FemCare, some feminist site about feminine issues and whatnot. I really do try not to be insensitive. I'm having a hard time, but I'm getting better in understanding trans issues and some of the terminologies, things that want have been insensitive about in the past. I endeavor not to misgender people, though I don't care if they have them in their pronouns on their Twitter account or any of that crap. That's just virtue signaling. But I mean, I once I've been told the person prefers to be called one thing, I'll refer to them as such from there on in. And if they present as something until I've heard otherwise, I will go with that. Either way, now we've got, as you can see, menstruators who have given birth. We used to call them mothers. Maybe that's a little exclusionary, but okay, how about just people who have given birth? I mean, as soon as you say that, you already know they're a menstruator, but we're really fixated on this menstruation thing and those who do menstruate and don't, because they may have transitioned and still menstruate. How many cartwheels have we got to do? How far is this got to go? And then you see when these little landmines are laid, these politically correct things, even if well-meaning, if we don't abide by them, we don't find them or keep up with how fast these things are changing, we get called the usual things. We're intolerant, we're bigots, we're cruel, look, we're not going out to hurt, I mean, people who are, cisgendered and straight, okay, the majority. And it's fair enough that we want to be sensitive to the minorities, but it's getting absurd. I mean, we can't keep up. And menstruators who have given birth, really? Is that how clinical and awful you really want to refer to individuals as? It's really pathetic. You guys are dehumanizing the people you're supposed to be speaking up for, and it's ridiculous. It's stupid, as I like to point out on here. There's a lot of stupid things. And sorry, I'm just never going to be referring to menstruators who have given birth, except when referring to morons like you who have queefed forth crap like this at me. So, getting on to somebody even more stupid, though. This is brilliant. Whole Foods Market, that's a specialty large commercial chain of virtue signaling where people can waste their money on ethically sourced foods and products and get wormy organic apples and overpriced broccoli, which of course is shipped out in wintertime with jets and transport trucks, and they probably cut down a lot of old growth southern forests in order to grow that and get these people their February avocados for their avocado toast. But either way, they do have a lot of virtue signalers and hipsters and hippies and so on who patronize their place. And I guess they've determined that poppies are offensive. And it's offensive if their staff are wearing poppies. There's probably a hippie or two whined about it. These clowns who wear their white poppies every year to decry, militarism and things like that. Despite the fact that the poppy, serves a few things. It commemorates the sacrifices. It's not celebrating the deaths or the killing. It commemorates the sacrifices of veterans, people who died, people who sacrificed before us in the big wars, things that modern hipsters could never imagine. I mean, their biggest tragedy tends to be, if the video game broke down or something like that, versus these people who lived through. I listened to I'm just going to relate on that, a monologue about that. Like imagining somebody who's born 1900. You got old enough just in time to go into World War One, and you suffered through all that horror and misery and went over there, and then you got back, and then just in time for the Spanish flu, and you watch people around you, which again, puts COVID to shame, that flu. People compare the numbers. Well, remember, the Spanish flu killed everybody every age, not just the dying like COVID does. And those numbers, when you look at the world population for how many the Spanish flu killed, are horrifying. Either way, you survive that, and you get through it, and you have some kids, and World War II comes along, and your kids go off to that mess, Oh, and you had the Great Depression in there while you're at it, of course, too, through the 30s. Get into the 50s, and maybe your grandchildren are going to Korea. In the 60s, they're going to Vietnam. Lots of war, lots of misery, lots of suffering, lots of economic hardship, lots of disease, pandemics. And our millennials cry about how tough they have it now. Oh, the fascism, the dictatorship. Oh, this is awful. Oh, Trumpism, we're all going to die. You guys have got it good. Read a little history, and there's part of the problems with their educational system, just teaching a bunch of bullshit, but forgetting the history of true suffering of Canadians right from start to end there. Though I guess it's hard to teach and make an understanding of those sacrifices. I was fortunate. I was born into a nice time. Either way, so getting back to this poppies commemorating that started. It's also a good fundraiser for the Legion for veterans who have been out. And the morons, and I mean it, morons, talk about a public relations fail. Here's a symbol that is honored throughout Canada, respected throughout the entire nation, and you've banned your staff from wearing them. You're not allowed to wear that to work any longer. What fucking idiots. So one of the staff members leaked it to the media that yes, we're banned from wearing poppies, and people of course lost it. And they went postal. And it's funny, it took them like a day and a half, with it hitting the fan. Even our stammering prime minister even came out and decried, this move by them. And then the other idiot, Doug Ford, and he is an idiot. He comes out saying he's going to legislate it so a place can't stop people from wearing poppies. Now, let's just double down on stupid, okay? We don't need more laws and rules. You don't want to force people to wear poppies. I mean, that's like with that Seinfeld episode I love so much, where they're getting on Kramer's case for not wearing the ribbon. Even though he's supporting a cause, he's not wearing the ribbon. We don't need to be in that world. We don't have to. We shouldn't have to shame people or force people to allow to wear poppies. We don't need another bloody law for it. All we needed, as we saw here, was to expose this idiocy, and these guys realizing that their sales are going to drop 30% if they keep up this stupid stance, and they backed off. Probably still aren't going to recover a number of the people they alienated and pissed off with that move. But either way, I like to rant about stupidity. I like to rant about virtue signaling stupidity that backfires, because virtue signaling is just so fucking stupid to begin with. So, good on you. You've earned the egg on your face. Hopefully these people shop at Superstore, where at least you can pay a better price for better produce. Now, on to a more bitter stupid. This is Peter Downing's latest initiative, I believe. He's the fellow who started Wexit and was going around, had the foresight to realize there's going to be a lot of Western alienation. As he got more increasingly extreme, I think Wexit basically kind of kicked him to the curb. And he's resurfaced with this now. Alberta first end game. And he wants Alberta, I guess, to join the United States. So he's modeled this flag. Isn't that beautiful? The Confederate flag, which is nothing to do with Canada or Alberta, is a symbol that even Mississippi said, you know what, this thing is out of date. They voted on that in the last election, said we're going to change our flag because it just doesn't represent what we're about anymore. It's a part of their history, but they don't need to display it for what it is. And he's got little maple leafs in there. What the fuck, dude? And this is what kills independence movements, People who do want to examine constitutional change or Alberta having increased independence within Canada or possibly leaving Canada altogether. When you see this kind of crap from a leader within the independence movement, how much do you think it draws people towards you? Because you do need the general public. You will need a strong majority vote in a referendum for any province to go. That's in the Clarity Act, and I think that's just in basic principle. I mean, for something that major, we want to make sure the majority really actually wants it. And you're not going to get the majority when you pull off shit like that. So just go away, Peter. Just go away. But it gave me something to rant about, I guess. See how that goes. Getting on to electoral nightmares, I guess I better address it. This image, I know. It's still going to the courts. It's still being counted. It's still changing potentially. And fine. What a mess. You know, what a mess. I remember sitting up all night waiting on the Gore and Bush and then waiting for weeks with the hanging Chads and all that crap. And it just, maybe it's time, at least whatever comes out of this election. I really don't want to jump too far into speculations on who won or what's going on with it. It's looking pretty likely like Biden's got it. I know there's some mail-in stuff and things, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. Why does it always have to be such a damn mess? You know, I'm not talking about getting rid of the electoral college either or things like that, but just the system for casting and counting ballots. Can't you at least make that uniform? I understand, and I like the fact that there is so much state-by-state independence in the states. You know, they got so much autonomy, because they are quite different. I've traveled a lot in the United States. I spent a lot of time down there. And Texans are nothing like the people you find in Oregon, and the people in Oregon aren't like the people you find in Pennsylvania. Well, the people in western Pennsylvania aren't anything like the people in eastern Pennsylvania, and so on. And they need some autonomy so that they can still stay as one unit. But for something that's a federal election, it's the whole country. Why can't they just, you know, because what they have right now is like 50 different little elections, and then they all got to put it together, and that's why you get these delayed results. And this place had their count in within hours, and this place takes weeks, and it's just kind of absurd. So maybe just set a goal to standardize the electoral methods for the next election. That's all. I'm not talking about the electoral college and other things, but just one way for everybody to vote and count votes and so on, and they'll all come out at the same time. Oh, there'll be division and other things, but at least it's one improvement, maybe. The worst sort of thing kind of happened in this. You know, I talked about that when we were on the panel last week, and I really didn't want to see a close election. I mean, I've made no secret, I'm not a fan of Trump, never really have been. If I lived in the States, I still probably would have voted for him. I would have held my nose to do so, because I think Biden's worse than Trump. And as Albertan, he's definitely worse than Trump for us. But I just didn't want to see a close race. You know, if one side or another is going to win, let it be definitive, so that they're not fighting and arguing for 4 years over who won. Well, we didn't get that. No matter what happens, they're going to be fighting for 4 more friggin' years. You know, the irony of all this, and I don't think Trump did all that great a job. He didn't do all that bad a job, too. He got a lot more crap than was warranted with him. The media certainly turned against him. The mistrust and everything in general down there has just been horrific. And up here, our media is no friggin' better. But if the Democrats had just had a sane, solid candidate and campaign, I'm pretty sure they could have won this thing definitively. I mean, they didn't take the Senate. They didn't make much, or if anything, for gains in Congress. Like, this wasn't a giant victory. I mean, all they did, which was what they were all fanatically about doing, though, was perhaps, and we'll see once all the court challenges are done, may have unseated Trump. But that's because they spent 4 years trying to overturn it through impeachments and other challenges and other crap. Spend the 4 years getting ready for the next 4 years, or 2 of them. You know, you got midterms coming up. Whoever loses this election, spend the next 2 years getting ready for the next election. Try and take Congress or maintain Congress or whoever you might be, instead of freaking out claiming that the last election wasn't valid. Because it's just not going to do you any favors in the long run. Elections are tough, and they take some work over some time. Getting on to morons who were elected, so this is distressing, and this is where I'm talking about Biden being much worse for Alberta than Trump. There's no doubt about that. Biden's promise to shut down the Keystone and other things are very troubling. I'm hoping it'll be one of those election promises that, and there's so many when it comes to politicians in every country, that they just kind of ignore once it's inconvenient. I'm hoping Biden kind of ignores that one, because that's such a big project, and they're going to lose a lot of money in the lawsuits if they back off. I mean, that thing's damn near built. But either way, Justin already jumped in there and spoke with Biden. You know, the president of Mexico, who's their biggest trading partner, has already publicly said he's going to stay out of this until it's fully settled. He's just not touching it. which is the smart move to do. This is our biggest partner, our strongest partner. When that elephant moves over, we feel it whether we like it or not. Don't want to piss them off needlessly. I mean, it doesn't mean we always have to bend over to the Americans, but you want to be diplomatic. But Justin jumped right in there and talked to Biden, so I guess Justin better really hope Biden wins, because Trump is going to despise him all the more if he ends up remaining president. So it's a gamble there, Justin, on our behalf, unfortunately. But the other thing is he wants to work on the challenges facing us with COVID, okay, whatever, and climate change. You see, Justin's as anti-Alberta as Biden is, probably more so. So this does not bode well, and these are the first two things Justin wants to talk about. We got economies that are in the toilet. We are in a catastrophe, not just a pandemic catastrophe, an economic catastrophe. Justin didn't mention the economy in his little tweet there, which he really should have. And one of the things that could help the economy, keep energy prices low, keep people working, get the damn Keystone pipeline through. But if he's not going to advocate on that pipeline on our behalf, I don't see Biden changing his mind much on it. Biden, look at this picture from him. Him in the middle there, looking off, all of us united. How unifying. Nice red kind of background color, looking off into the future. Uncle Joe, rather than creepy Joe, let's be nice, he's Uncle Joe. There was an Uncle Joe before. That was Stalin. And they put out imagery that was astoundingly similar. You got the nation, the country, you got those faces all pointing in one direction. They're looking ahead, and they're stoic, and they're strong, and they're red. I don't know if it was subconscious or purposeful, but it doesn't make me more comfortable with the Biden administration. Either way, moving on from old Uncle Joe. Yes, everybody's panicking about the COVID again. This thing that is castrated. I'm just going to talk Alberta-wise. That our economy has been disrupted. It's been a mess. It's been a catastrophe. Less than 400 people died out of 4.4 million. It's good. I'm glad the risk hasn't been nearly as bad as people make out. But now the cases, and as people start referring to it, I am not one of the conspiracy theorists. Look, COVID exists. It does kill people. It is dangerous. And you know what? When a vaccine comes, if a vaccine comes, there's another big one. And it sounds like some good news on it today from Pfizer. The timing really feeds the conspiracy theorists. But they feel they have one that may be 90% effective. That would be great. And if it's tested and safe, I will get it. I'm not anti-vax, though I do worry about rushed vaccines. Either way, it's not nearly, though, the plague that they try to make it out to be, or as I said earlier, it's nothing like the Spanish flu. It's not that bad. Cases are rising in Alberta. Now we've got some challenges. It's pressuring our health system. I think we got some questions then if our health system is that fragile, particularly this far into the pandemic. But I mean, we're up to, 600, 700 cases that came up today. Nuanced cases. And again, not all in the hospital or whatnot. 70 doctors, though, they're screaming. And don't worry, old Rachel Notley's right in the background screaming for it too. Lockdown. We want a lockdown. We want to shut things down. We want to put everybody out of work, send everybody home. It's easy to say when you're on a fucking salary. When you're a government worker. When you're talking about hundreds of thousands, maybe even a couple of million people who are going to be out of work, who've been out of work periodically throughout this year, whose companies are going broke, whose employers might have gone broke. Hang on with this bloody lockdown talk. That's a last resort. Last resort. And we're nowhere near that desperate. God, these guys have no sense of the damage they're doing when they pull this shit. They really don't. But that's what they're doing. They're howling for it. The media giving them all the press, and Notley and her little clowns are all jumping around. We got to lock down, we got to lock down, we got to lock down. Jesus. So let's look at the stats. What have we got? What do you want to shut down our economy again for weeks? Put hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people out of work for? What? More billions into debt? For what? 369 deaths so far. 192 in the hospital. 39 in ICU. This is 4.4 million people in Alberta. Yes, I know. It's growing. You've been saying that for 6 fucking months. And it goes up and down. We're in a big spike right now, but the deaths are flat. 6 people died today. That's tragic for 6 people. It is. But you do a lockdown. You put millions of people out of work. You put stress and pressure on everybody. And it's causing damage. Real damage. I mean, opioid deaths. You want to lock down. Opioid deaths have long and far surpassed COVID deaths. More are dying from overdoses. And it's a spike. It's doubled in the last year. It's directly tied to the stresses and challenges and CERB and a number of things with COVID has got the people on this drugs and they're overdosing. That's just one of the factors. The lockdowns are causing more damage than good. So be careful when you're screaming for these lockdowns. And I understand some people are well-meaning when they're calling for these lockdowns, but there's some real questions about whether these lockdowns even help. For some solid ones. I mean, we're 6-7 months into this thing now. We're starting to see some real numbers, and we can't pretend we don't know about this thing anymore. We're knowing a lot more, and it turns out that only a small, tiny percentage of the population is vulnerable. So let's do everything we can to protect them. I mean, what we've got going on in Alberta right now, part of the reason there's a big spike in some hospitalizations is because it's gotten into our hospitals. That's concerning. Of course it is. That's our most vulnerable people. A number of hospitals have infections with them. Let's get on that. Let's see what we can do. But locking down the whole province to try and address this doesn't look like it's even going to help. Hey, so let's talk about the most hated country in the world. Those evil blonde bastards. The Swedes. No bikini shots this week. It's too cold out. It doesn't work right. The Swedes. Yes, I like bringing them up every couple weeks. Why? Because they were right. They didn't lock down. They didn't make mask laws. They didn't shut down their hairstyles. They didn't shut down their schools. They did things. They stopped larger gatherings. They upped their healthcare game. They did a number of things. They screwed up at the start. They put a bunch of infected people into their seniors' homes, which led to a terrible death rate at the very early part of the pandemic, as every country had a big death rate at the early part of the pandemic. Yet those deaths have gone down. By every measure, Sweden should be the worst on earth. They should be the worst, and they aren't even close. They aren't even close. But they are having, as you can see here, a spike in cases. The whole world has got a spike in cases right now. The cooler weather, the season, whatever number of factors, but the cases are really shooting up fast and hard. But look at the deaths. The deaths are the chart there. It's reversed on this thing. Either way, the top chart's the deaths, if you can't read that. They're spiking a little bit here at the end of October. You know, you don't want people to die, but look at it. It's nothing, guys. It's not that big. The cases are going through the roof, and the deaths are not reflecting it. Something's wrong here. I mean, if these lockdowns were the be-all and end-all, Sweden's deaths should be through the roof. They're not. And there's been studies done. So this is a large study that was done looking at over 50 nations and a bunch of factors, and it's in the Lancet. You can look it up. The Lancet's a pretty respected medical journal. And you can see somebody showed the conclusion below, though, that there's found no correlation whatsoever between the severity of the lockdown and the number of deaths. That's pretty striking, isn't it? No correlation, not even a slight correlation. So we're doing cost benefit. There might not be any benefit to these lockdowns. This bug might be sliding right through our lockdowns. We're bankrupting ourselves, and the bug's just sliding right by us anyway. I'm not saying we should do nothing, but let's not put all our eggs into the lockdown basket. It doesn't seem to be working. And let's talk about that. Doug Ford, the moron. And yeah, the shine is off that guy for a number of reasons, but particularly on the way he's dealt with the pandemic. He panicked on October 9th, shut down all the restaurants and bars again, gyms, a whole bunch of things. Well, let's look at it. It's been a month since that happened. There's the chart above showing COVID deaths right up to now, or not deaths, sorry, not deaths, cases. They're going up, constantly spiking. Their curve is just like any other province that didn't lock down. His lockdown appears not to have had any effect on it whatsoever. So if it's not having an effect, why the hell are we doing it? I mean, if it worked, if you could see a big downward spike from October 9th, 2 weeks later, because it's always 2 weeks later, the cases dropped or flatlined or leveled, then we say, geez, maybe we better lock down and see if we can get this under control. But it doesn't seem to be doing a damn thing. During our biggest lockdown was the time when we had the most cases back in spring, too. We were really locked down then. Our schools, our hairdressers, our everything. And the cases, as we eased off, the cases leveled out through summer. Now we're getting a spike in cases. But the deaths, again, aren't going up much. Some people are dying. The average age of them is 82. I wish they'd all make it to 100, but we got to get a little realistic with our reaction to this thing here. So when 70 doctors are screaming and howling for lockdown in Alberta, come on, please, Premier Kenney, think hard. And I think he has been. Among premiers, he's been the one at least most reticent about really castrating our economy to try and fight this invisible monster here. So I'm going to get on. That's enough about COVID for today. And get on to when you can tell it's an election year in Calgary. Because suddenly they've rediscovered fiscal conservatism, responsibility, all these things that these lying assholes claim to be when they were on their way in. Nancy claimed to be pro-business. I think pretty much everybody agrees he's the most anti-business mayor we've seen in a generation, and our businesses are reflected as well, the economy, the taxes. But of course, in an election year, as with 4 years ago, 4 years ago I think they froze the property taxes. Now they're just saying they could even lower them this year. But you see, you know what he's going to do if he gets back in is he'll triple them the year after. They're not going to cut the spending. They're just cutting the taxes. They're kicking the can down the road. And he's got his purple chin diaper on there and things. He's virtue signaling and getting ready for the season, for the electoral push. He hasn't committed to it because his approval numbers are in the toilet. Very, very vain man. So he's not going to commit until he's really sure he can win this thing. Of course, he doesn't want to look like he's running away from Farkas. Plus, he's never going to get a gig as sweet as this one. I mean, the kind of pay and profile he's getting. So he's not quitting quite yet. We'll see. It's a toss-up as to whether or not Nenshi stays in. And then we get into the stupidity end of things, though. So here's another one, Keating. He was terrible. He voted to spend almost as much as Drew Farrell. Again, he came in supposedly as a pro-business conservative. No, it's pure bullshit. He just, sang the tune so he could get in there and then turned into the leftist fool that he is, and he is. He's not even running again, thankfully. Hopefully we just don't replace him with another Keating. But he's making excuses because they voted and they defunded the police. And they're trying to polish a turd, They're trying to say, no, we reallocated. We didn't defund. Look, you got this pile of money here for the police. You took money out of it and you put it somewhere else. It's still defunding. The police have less money than they had to begin with. And you're not doing it to try and balance the whole budget. You're not doing it to try and have targeted community things to reduce the need. And again, you could... It's BS. You're doing it to pander to the extremists at Black Lives Matter, which have you guys terrified with your tails between your little legs and this ridiculous, blind, defund movement. And that's what it is. And Black Lives Matter are extreme. I'll say that in every rant because it's the truth. All you have to do is go to their own site, Black Lives Matter Canada. They aren't calling for reallocations. They want the police abolished. They want them gone. They're in this Fruit Loop world of no police. As a libertarian, I'd almost like to see it. That's fine. Me and my neighbors would band together, put some money together, so assuming we get the associated tax break when the police are gone, and we'll get a private police force. I don't think the criminal element will like that. Probably could be a little rougher on them than the sensitivity trained police we have today. But either way, Keating, piss off. You didn't reallocate. You guys voted to defund, and that's what it was. That's what the vote was about. Let's not BS around there. There's the little BS meter. It's gone, quite high on the chart there with Keating, as it's prone to doing. So let's look here. Save Calgary kindly posted this picture just so we can all remember. Let's remember this through this year as we're voting. These are the ones that voted to defund. Ward Sutherland, there's another turd, really came in on supposedly being responsible, and it just turned out to be terrible. Carra, well, at least with him I could respect him, or Farrell. We always knew they were leftists. Woolley, I'll get to him later. And some of these others, Sean Chu, what would he, of course, he voted to keep funding for the police, but he was only a member of the police force for decades. What would he know, right? Diane Collier-Cart voted to keep money on. She's been, well, in my view, too long, but all the same, spent a lot of time on the police commissions and things like that. Farkas, who got kicked off of the police commission or committee because he wasn't big on this defunding idea, and also this groveling statement of having them try and all admit that the police are inherently evil and racist and just out to kill people of color or something. It's just absurd. Look at this gang of clowns and keep that in mind when you pick who to vote for this year. This year, you get one chance to flush these assholes out, or you're stuck with them for 4 more years. So things gotten heated over it. And yeah, Evan Woolley is the Choad of the week, and he's earned it. He's earned it a number of times. He's a hipster peckerhead, from downtown Calgary. And he went off on a tantrum because Sean Chu, again, didn't support his defunding the police crap, and called Chu one of the most ignorant morons in city council. Every developer that donates to him is a target that I will push. I'm not 100% sure even what he was getting at with that. It was pretty clear what he was getting at with Chu. Whatever. I name call all the time. God knows I'm calling Woolley a peckerhead right now in the Choad of the week. That's not a big deal, and Sean's got thick skin. I'm not too worried about him there. And Woolley has since refused to apologize for that. What I'm more concerned about is his threat, though. His threat. You're a sitting councillor, and you're saying that every developer that donates to Chu is a target that you will push. You type this at 20 to 2 in the morning. I wonder if you meant punish. I don't know. You haven't really clarified on that. So this is getting into that world similar to Gil McCowan, who got the Choad of the Week for that before, where you're going to start targeting, literally the term he used, donors to political opponents. And are you going to use your city authority to what? Hold up permits? Um, Shut them down? Take away their licenses? Influence bureaucrats to delay projects? What's your plan there, Evan? What's that threat about? That is a big concern. Very big concern. And developers, they're really out to demonize the big bad developers right now. You know, if you live in a house in the city, it's probably built by a developer. Even if you're in your city, they were just older developers. They're not inherently bad. They're providing a service that people want. But that's a discussion for another day. The hypocrisy of Evan Woolley, too. So here's his spending, his financial statement from the last election. He spent almost 183,000 on his election campaign in the last election. This is a city councilor. 183,000? What the hell? How much do you need to spend? Either way, I couldn't print the whole thing on here. I didn't want to bother with it. Anyways, if you want to go, it's all online. The disclosure's there. He's got piles of developers that donated to him. I do hope they're going to slap their checkbooks shut in light of this guy feeling that he can use his position to threaten people who donate to his opponents. That's an affront to democracy. To be honest, it should go to the ethics commissioner. Maybe it will. Either way, Evan, you're a Choad. You're the Choad of the Week. I hope you're the unemployed Choad of the Week in a year and a bit from now. That's how I'll close off the rant for tonight. Y'all have a good night, and I'm sure I'll have a lot of stupidity and stuff to bitch about next week.